Welcome all. Thanks for joining and fitting us into your busy schedule. Thanks. We obviously, this is going to be the masterclass on the Founders Playbook for running a tight fundraising process. A really hot topic that obviously everyone here, I'm sure, is probably dealing with the fundraising process right now or coming up to one and preparing for one. So we've got an amazing opportunity to bring in a really seasoned expert with fundraising, who I'll introduce very shortly. Obviously he's going to be talking us through his playbook, which hopefully will give you guys all some really practical tactics that you can go away and deploy literally tomorrow or today, and we'll also be answering questions as we go. So for everyone on the call, please, there's in the bottom sort of left hand side of the Google Meets, there's a little kind of 9-dot icon. You can click that. Q&A feature should be there where you can punch your questions in, and we'll try and pick those up as we go. We might not answer every question, but we will try and get through as many of the questions as possible. So yeah, cool. So quick intros, really. Who are we? Why are we talking about fundraising? Well, I don't know anything about fundraising, really. I've never fundraised before, but I run a small founder community called Founder Nation, alongside my other main business, which is Hot Sourced. As part of Founder Nation, we run pretty regular events, and that includes masterclasses just like this. And every event that we do, fundraising is always a really hot topic with founders. And so to have the opportunity to have Sean come along and speak on the topic with his kind of years of experience and multiple fundraising rounds that he's been involved in, it's just epic. But Sean, maybe you can kind of give a very quick intro to yourself and kind of what your background is.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and I appreciate everyone taking their lunchtime to come and listen to the talk today. Look, a little bit about my background. I had 3 startups back in my 20s and the early 2000s, and I've kind of been through the hustle and kind of fundraising back then. I worked at a bunch of big companies like Google, helped set up the Stripe Europe engineering team. But most recently, I've been on the boards of VC funds. I was a Sequoia Scout and was able to go through their kind of fundraising and angel program, and have worked with founders for over a decade. And most recently got back into the game as a founder myself, and started Seapoint, and building out a product to be the financial home for founders. And our whole business is geared towards helping founders in their financial operations, of which fundraising is one of the most important financial moments any founder faces. Over the last kind of 18 months, Seapoint has gone through 2 fundraising rounds. We raised a pre-seed of 3 million. When it was me and a Notion page. So I've been through that kind of very first fundraising when you don't have a lot to show for yourself. And then most recently, we raised another 7 million seed round, which hasn't been announced yet, but you've kind of heard it here first. So we've raised about 10 million over 2 rounds. So I've very recently been through this process multiple times. Definitely have learned a huge amount along the way about what fundraising likes today in the environment. So happy to kind of share a bit of the system that we've put together for how to run the investor roadshow.
Wicked, really cool. I think to have that historical experience, but also more recently with the new tools that are coming out and that changing the game is really cool. So let's dive into it. I guess, Sean, it'd be really cool if you could kind of walk us through kind of high level, what are the kind of key steps as part of the fundraising process?
I mean, so the first thing is that fundraising is a system. And if you think of it like a system and a process, and you're just trying to optimize your chances of success here, it can seem very ambiguous and kind of like an art form. There's a lot of anxiety around it and not knowing what to do. But if you really focus on the system and try to follow the system, you're really going to improve your chances of success. And that means very simply, first of all, you have to prepare, and you have to take the good 3 or 4 months before you launch your fundraising process to get everything in order, because the process itself is so intense. You need to target the right investors, and you need to build out, a good pipeline of investors and intros and things. Next, you have to run a really intense roadshow, 3 to 4 week process. in which you run the process in a way where at the end of it you've got a few term sheets that are landing around the same time, so you then can go and close the round. And so I'll just walk you through each of these with a bunch of tactics and tips about how you can make each part of the process more successful.
Epic, cool. But just to remind everyone, anyone who's joined more recently, guys, you're going to have the chance to kind of ask your questions as we go. There's a little function in the bottom hand corner of the Google Meets where you can click, and then there's a Q&A button. So if you want to chuck in your questions there as we go, it'd be great. I'll try to pick them up.
I insisted I really want questions in this kind of conversation rather than me just presenting the whole time. So
cool, wicked. That's not a TED talk.
Not a TED talk.
Dive in.
And as you can see, I'm not very good at PowerPoint presentations, but so the first thing is that you really want to take your time in the 3 or 4 months before your fundraising to get everything in order. Firstly, VCs are going to want to meet with you all the time. Their job is going to meet with founders. You'll get a lot of cold inbounds. You might get people warm intros. My advice is typically just get a template response and just tell them, look, we're heads down building. We are building our product right now. We're not taking investor meetings. It's going to save you a lot of time. Your time is too valuable at these stages to be spent talking to investors. These coffee meetings are useful for them. They're collecting intelligence. They're getting data points on your business. And when you're in the early stages, your business is going to change a lot. And the last thing you want is for them to see how the sausage is made. And if you're doing one thing 1 month, they come back 3 months later, they're going to see you've changed, you've learned, it's good not to have that. You want to put your best foot forward when you're ready with all your materials and your story and your narrative. So don't do too many coffee meetings. In this phase, take your time getting all the materials ready. So before you go out to the roadshow, you need a good pitch deck, an investor memo, financial models, use of funds. Customer research is super important. It actually takes a bunch of time to do this. So we built a database of 100 customer interviews that was really helpful in telling the story. Really good video demos and customer referrals. These are all things that take time, and you really want to start ahead.
Just to jump in, Sean, those customer interviews, those are, you saw that when you presented those to VCs as part, did they ask to see those as part of what your narrative was, or did they just strengthen your narrative?
Yeah, it's really important to strengthen the narrative around what the problem is, because you can either have an opinion and you tell them this is what I think the problem is, or you have data. And so we recorded all the customer interviews, ran them through AI, created data sets out of them, took out leads from different founders, different areas. And we actually shared the whole database with investors during the due diligence process to show, we were passionate about going and talking to founders, understanding the problem. But then from their perspective, it's the fastest education they can get when they see, here's real data, here's real transcripts and interviews from customers talking about the pain points.
I suppose this is particularly important when you're at an early stage round and you don't have necessarily any revenue or kind of any normal business metrics to measure by. Yeah. Okay.
This is in place of traction.
Yeah. Yeah, great, cool, good tip. Sorry, I've interrupted.
No problem. So look, the biggest thing in this pitch, and I can't reemphasize this enough, we made this mistake when we started our pitch process, and thankfully got good advice on this. The first 5 or 10 minutes of your pitch is all about you as the founder, or founders who are on the call. Before you have a lot of traction, investors are kind of 80% of their decision processes. I'm betting on this founder. And if I really understand what motivates the founder, where they get their insights from, how does their background align with the problem they're trying to solve, then they get excited. Because typically a VC will say, I'm going to back this founder in this space, kind of regardless of the product that they're building, because the product will change so much. And so you want to tie back your mission and your story and your market to your background in this conversation. It is the most important thing. And so don't go in and start doing, here's my bio, here's where I've worked, here's my LinkedIn profile information. You want it to feel personal, and you want to get the passion that you have across in this moment. Because really, in the early stages, all the investor has is the founder, and they will back great founders regardless of whether they believe in the product or solution, because they know that the founder will figure it out. Everyone pivots, but a great founder and a great market, right, is kind of 80% of the decision at the early stages. So don't bury the team slide at the back, right? Don't try to be too humble. do try to kind of talk about what your new unique insight is through your experiences.
Cool.
Good. And then, listen, just make sure your LinkedIn is up to date, that your pitch at the LinkedIn, on your website, and your Twitter, they all have to say the same narrative. Investors will do this kind of due diligence. It's just hygiene. Getting the amount right is important. So you want to time your funding rounds around milestones. So the question is like, how much money do you need to get to what milestone and what time period? And typically you want to give yourself enough runway and buffer so that if it takes 6 months longer, you're not going to run out of capital. And with the amount, it's also a signal. If you come to an investor and say, we're going to be the category winner in market X, and then you ask for 250,000, they're going to say, is this person really going to be the category leader with that amount of money? So sometimes it's important to have your funding linked to your ambition level. VCs only want to back category leaders and people who are going to win big, and that does take capital. And then on the other hand, you don't want to ask for too much and make it seem like unrealistic. Like you need to have some milestones that you're going to get to before the next round.
With that, for founders, how do you actually map those milestones? That's a big question. You could probably spend half an hour talking about that, but are there any kind of high level tips? Is it working with a fractional CFO who's maybe built in the same space? How do you actually know what rough cost? If you're early stage, you have very little data. How do you kind of map what you're going to need?
Yeah, so if you're raising a pre-seed, you want to basically map the milestone of what you need for a seed round. And typically you need a live product, you need a set of customers who are using the product, maybe some early monetization. But that's the milestone for seed. And then if you're raising a seed round, like you need to have product market fit to get to Series A. So, that's maybe 100 customers, $1 million in ARR, a repeatable sales process. What does the team look like between A and B as well? So it's pretty, you map yourself to pre-seed, seed, Series A. It's pretty well defined what you need for each of these. And then work back. And speed is everything. So if you turn up and say, look, we're raising, 3 million and it's going to take us 24 months. That's also not credible. You want to basically be putting your milestones probably in 12-month chunks with a 6-month buffer, which is why kind of 18 to 24 months seems more appropriate.
Okay, cool.
Good. You want to get your timing right. There are blackout periods in the fundraising. I just spoke to a founder who started fundraising in November. Christmas happened and the entire pipeline died. If you're going to raise in the second half of the year, September is the only month you can start because it gives you 3-month runway to Christmas. If you get trapped in the Christmas period, your momentum will absolutely die. And then summertime is also a bit of a blackout. It's hard to get people's attention in July and August. So you either want to be raising in the first half of the year before summer, or if you're going to go out the second half, you've got to start in September.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And then get a good lawyer ahead of time. The lawyer is going to be super important. Don't hire a friend. Don't hire a general purpose counsel. You got to get a lawyer who's done 20, 30, 40 fundraisings before, and get them on hand, ready to go when your roadshow starts.
Cool. One question we have from someone is: do you have any recommendations on how to create a robust narrative? How to be a world-class at storytelling? I don't know whether you're going to cover that in the next slides.
No, I can tell you now. So the most important thing is that you want to signal an ambition level to VCs. They're looking to back people who are building $1 billion company. So your ambition level is a big signal that they're seeing. So if you're too conservative, or you're too humble, or you ask for too little money, or you set milestones that seem too conservative, you're actually going to put off investors. When we did our kind of like forecasting out for our deck, I remember our investor said, you should just double the numbers, because honestly, a VC is going to look at your numbers and half them anyways. So if you put the conservative numbers out there, they're going to half them anyways, right? And it's just a signal, like they want to see founders taking big swings and like really going for it. Yeah. And they're used to kind of folks, shooting for the moon and then, hitting the tops of the trees, right? It's definitely the signal you want to send, is high ambition level to a VC.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's move on.
All right. So the second stage is, the biggest thing I see folks get wrong is that they don't understand that the investor list and the investors are going to, this is just a search algorithm. you're not trying to convince every investor to invest in your company. You're trying to find the investor that already has conviction in what you're doing. And there's no other way than a brute search algorithm. And that's why it's so important to get the target list right, so that you maximize your chances that you're going to find those investors who are going to immediately have conviction in what you're doing and get excited by it. But there's just no shortcut than going and talking to 40 investors to find the ones that do. When we started our round, I would have told you, like, here are the 10 investors I think are most likely to invest. And it turns out that they were not the ones. Like, it's very hard to tell ahead of time. So all you can do is just kind of understand you've got to run the process. So typically you've got to talk to 40 investors to get 2 or 3 term sheets. You know, who knows, you may be amazing and you may only need to talk to 10. It's all dependent, but I would kind of flag 40 as a good number to start with.
And just above that, in terms of the funnel, Sean, how many, I guess, good fits investors do you need to reach out to, or kind of have to get those 40 pitches in the diary?
Yeah, so you'll have a conversion rate at every stage. So maybe that you reach out to investors and they don't respond, so they don't convert into intro meetings. You need 40 intro meetings. And it really just depends. Like, if you've got a great profile and a great background and a good fit, you might end up with, you know, we had like 90% success in intro meetings. But if you're an earlier founder, it may be a little bit harder to get those meetings. So just kind of be honest with yourself how many you think are going to convert.
Cool. Okay.
The number one thing I can tell you is that the domain and stage fit and check size are just the most important things to think about. So you can go and talk to big multi-stage tier 1 firms like Sequoia or Excel or something, and they all say that they do pre-seed or seed. But when you actually look at their portfolio, you're going to realize that, yeah, they have done it in the past, but they've done 1 or 2 checks for every 10 Series A. So it's actually their track record that tells you the story about what they do. Look at their actions, not what they say. Everyone says they're in the market. Oh, we would do a pre-seed, we would do a seed, right? But the odds are stacked against you. Look at the track record.
And that track record you could normally find just on their website. So are there any kind of databases that make that easier to find? Yeah,
and I mean, first of all, you can use Claude. It's great. Just put an investor in and it'll come back and tell you a lot of data on who they've backed and what stage they're at. We're building an investor database, which we're launching shortly, where you can actually go and get this information. But yeah, you have to do your kind of research, and other investors will kind of know as well. They can give you some pointers. One of the things that's really important, just by the way, is finding domain-specific investors and partners. Because when you are spending most of your time educating a partner on a topic that they do not understand, it is likely that they are not going to invest. Partners will have conviction in ideas that they already know and understand. You want to have to go and figure out, what are the economics? What are the competitors in this market? You know, are these problems really problems? I don't know. I don't understand the space. So for us, with a fintech offering, we found that actually when we went to fintech focused funds, there was just an immediate click. They got so many things about what we were doing. Whereas when we went to a general purpose investor who invests in a broad range of things, it took a lot more time to educate them. It was harder to get them to conviction.
One of the questions I kind of wanted to ask was just around, like, is there a red flag list for if an investor is wasting your time? I suppose that element of that's one. If they're asking you to explain it multiple times over and over again, probably isn't that level of conviction overlap that you're looking for. Is there anything else you would kind of add to that red flag list of, like, this is a waste of time?
Yeah, I'll get to that in the next section, but it's basically their responsiveness is the signal that you will have, whether they're serious or not. And if an investor is serious, they will hound you. They will get back to you in 24 hours. They'll want another meeting within 48 hours. Yeah. They will ask you for follow-up information. They'll bring an associate onto the call. Right? That's the number one signal. If someone says they love you, this is great, we're really excited, and they don't get back to you for a week, just strike them off the list.
Okay. So you've got to be almost you can't be optimistic.
If you're chasing an investor, you've already lost the deal.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. The final point on that, I don't want to take up too much time on this point, but like the conflicts one, what does that mean? Can you elaborate on that? So is that if they have another company that competes with you in their portfolio already?
I mean, if it's an absolute direct competitor, they won't invest in another company that is competing directly with one of their portfolio companies.
Mm.
And it's a very quick and easy way to decide whether they're likely to invest. But what they will do is they will take your meeting and they will mine every piece of like intelligence out of your business and pass it on to their portfolio company they've already invested in.
Okay.
You want to be very careful about that.
Yeah. Okay.
They will absolutely take the meeting and want to meet with you. You decide whether you think there's a conflict there.
Yeah, got it. Cool.
Good. You need to just have good CRM practice. This is a sales pipeline, and you need a good CRM. You need to have good stages. You want to have email and calendar integration so that all the emails that are coming in VCs get captured. And you want to use something like DocuSend to send your decks so you can see whether they've read them or not. And then the last thing that is super important is that warm intros are the most effective. And if you can get another founder in the space to introduce you, that is like the best lead. VCs, a number of them said to me, the introduction source of a deal is often one of the biggest signals we get. And if one great founder introduces another founder, that's a huge signal to them. If their customers introduces us, that's a huge signal as well. And we actually got a number of our customers to reach out to their VCs on our behalf when we were fundraising. Angels, it's really important. Build up a good angel list. Build up a good angel network. You can do this well in advance of this fundraising. They are often very credible, particularly if they're domain experts. And then obviously if you have any existing VCs, or even if you meet a VC and they pass, you can ask them, hey, do you know any other VCs that would be more appropriate for us to talk to? That's kind of like the order I would look at.
And for those people who are really early stage and they don't necessarily come from a background where they have access to customers who are VC backed or things like that, if you really have a blank start on the network side of things and have no warm intros, how do you artificially kind of create those warm intros quickly?
So if you're in that stage, I would really recommend joining an accelerator. If you have very little network and you're early in your career, accelerators are fantastic ways to meet tons of other founders. And these accelerator programs typically have amazing investor networks. They'll hold demo days and invite investors along. And it's a really great way of like kickstarting your funding round.
And I suppose you'll also meet other great founders who will also be having conversations.
The founder alumni network of these accelerators will open doors for you as well. There'll be advisors and mentors who can open doors. But it's the fastest way that you could build up a network if you're starting kind of from scratch in the founder role. Yeah,
I mean, I know a lot of the members of our community have fundraised and will do intros for other members. So I guess joining just general communities as well would be a help. Just conscious of time, but there are a couple of great questions here. There's loads of great questions. So I'm just going to try to pick them up as we go. Guys, if we missed your question, we will try and come back to you at the very end if we have time. And pick up one question here in particular. If you need 40 investor pitches to get 2 or 3 term sheets, if 50% of those VCs you contact agree to a meeting, so you want to be talking to 80 investors, do you start that 3 months before and try to schedule those for that 3-week window that you mentioned?
Yeah.
So if the first investor says yes, do you set up for 3 months' time? Do you know what I mean? Like how?
It's a sales pipeline, and the timing of everything is super important because you want those 2 or 3 term sheets to land in exactly the same week. It's not helpful if you get a term sheet 1 week and then another term sheet appears 3 weeks later, because the term sheet's going to expire. You're going to get 3 or 5 days to make a decision. So it's absolutely about building all of this in parallel so that the outcome lands. So the first thing is you can collect references well in advance. So you can investor list over 3 months. You can go and talk to your friends and cohorts and founders and say, who can you introduce me to? And then it's like the week before you want to start doing your intro meetings, maybe even 2 weeks. What you want to do is you want to get all of those intros blitzed out in one go.
Yeah.
And when all of those intros get blitzed out in one go, you've got like a Calendly link, a follow-up email, and you want all of your intro meetings to happen in this first week. So you really want to be able to time it. And this could be a good segue to the investor roadshow section.
Yeah. Cool. Let's get it through then.
So the investor roadshow, it has got to be a highly compressed, dedicated process. You just can't be dragging this out over a few months. I mean, firstly, as a founder, you need to run your business. And the first thing is that it's the founder's entire job. Just check out of your company, tell everyone I'm busy for the next 3 to 4 weeks, because this is your sole focus. You need to be doing 3 to 5 meetings a day. It is intense. You need to bring high energy into these meetings. You're going to be exhausted by them. You have to take care of yourself, like really focused on your mental and physical energy during this process, because it's emotionally and physically exhausting to have this level of intensity for 3, 4, 5 weeks. You want to be lining up all your intros. So first week is like all intro pitches. I think we did like 20, 30 intro pitches in our first week. What will happen is the ones that are interested will have follow-up meetings, and they'll want to meet like 48, 72 hours later. They'll then ask you a bunch of questions. You might have 2 or 3 follow-up meetings, but then you need to push to a decision pretty quickly. And so, this whole process from intro meeting to decision should be something like 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. And if they're falling outside of that responsiveness, that's a red flag, and you shouldn't be allocating them to this. Is a likely deal.
If you are chasing someone, right, you've already lost the deal. If an investor doesn't come back to you, I mean, you need to follow up. So like after the meeting, intro meeting, follow up, give them some more information. So we would always send like our product demo as part of the follow-up meeting. Or if there was something in the call they were interested in, we might send them a customer research database. So there's a little bit of information to follow up after that first meeting. But if you don't hear from them in 3 or 4 days, like they're out, just strike them off your list, they're gone. A VC who wants a deal and knows that you're in a competitive, like high intensity fundraising process just won't leave you that long.
I guess, is that true for angels as it is for VCs, or is there a difference?
No, angels are completely different. So I'm talking about professional investors, which is their job is to invest in the best startups.
Yeah.
Angels is a totally different process. These are individuals who this is their side gig.
Yeah. Cool. No, that makes sense. So I just wanted to clarify that. Cool.
Good. So everything about this process should signal speed, because speed is one of the #1 signals VCs look for. Speed's the #1 thing that's going to determine your success as a startup. So if you are slow to follow up, slow to schedule meetings, slow to send more information, right, it's going to be a signal to investors. We actually had one of the people in the office I gave them access to my email, and their entire job was, as I was going out and doing all of these meetings, they were then following up while I was running around between meetings. So actually getting someone to dedicated, getting good templates so that it's like dead simple to follow up, making sure your materials are available easily. These are all things that can help with this kind of speed and keep the pipeline moving.
Cool.
The first thing is you've got to prepare for a lot of no's. I mean, it is hard when you're building a company and you put your life and soul into it to go out and do, 5 pitches a day. VCs always say no at 9 o'clock at night. It's like they do all their meetings, they get into bed, and then they just go and send no emails to everyone. So I would get back to like my hotel room after a long day, and I would just sit there and the no's would roll in, and it was really depressing. And so you just got to emotionally prepare yourself. Like a no is not like your business isn't any good, I don't like you, it's not personal. It's just they weren't a good fit for you, right? As I said, in the search algorithm, they didn't have conviction. Do not take literally their emails, right? So many founders are like, oh, I met this investor and they said, we need more traction. You're like, no, he just said that because he wants an option to invest in you if you do get traction in the future. A VC's whole thing is they want optionality. They don't want to burn a bridge with you, so they're not going to tell you the truth. So do not take their answers literally. Don't think that you need to go and change anything. Look at it, smile, send. I had a little template. I said, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we'll be able to work together in the future, something like that. Send it, archive it, move on. It's a search algorithm. You got more investors to go and talk to. But do not do a lot of self-reflection based on what they tell you in their no answer.
Thick skin.
And every time you get a no, just take it as an opportunity to add another investor to your pipeline. Like that's the process. Someone says no, great, let's fill the pipeline, and you just keep filling the pipeline until you've got the term sheet signed. No matter how likely you think it is that an investor goes to investment committee or is excited, it's not done until it's signed, and you just have to keep building pipeline until it's signed. The last thing, which I thought was the least kind of intuitive thing, is that VCs, for some reason, all talk to each other. Like, their associates all have these WhatsApp groups, and they're all sharing deals and they're sharing information. And when the no's start coming in, they're going to start to hear about the no's. VCs want to be in this like FOMO land where it's a hot deal, no one in. And when they start seeing like, oh, so-and-so passed, so-and-so passed, so-and-so passed, they're like, well, if those guys passed, why should I do the deal? What did they see that I haven't seen? That's why it's so important to have the length of time as short as possible. So that, you know, if a fundraise goes on for 3 months, like, it's a signal to everyone that this is not a deal. No one wants to be the VC that does the deal after 3 months of folks getting no's.
Interesting. Okay, so there's a bit of like reputation and kind of rumor mills going around. People are conscious of that timeline. Okay.
Yeah, but if you go to the next slide, I'm just going to tell you one thing that happens.
Just before we do, I just wanted to chuck through some questions, Sean. We've got a couple of coming, and we've got maybe 2 minutes we can spare to go through them. Artemi asked, are you pitching online or in person?
Did all the intro calls online.
Yeah.
It's not worth wasting your time going to meet in person for the intro call. But if folks want to do due diligence, I actually use the fact that, you know, I'm not in London. So I was like, I'm going to London next week. If you want to meet in person and do due diligence, it's good to meet in person when you're through the process enough that it's serious. Yeah. So yeah, I spent all of the follow-up stuff in person, running around from office to office.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then Abane asked, if the process takes 3 to 4 months, this is maybe more through the prep stage, but if the process takes 3 to 4 months, should you start before you've reached those milestones? You talked about knowing your milestones and when to kick things off and what to include in the deck. Do you kick that off before you actually reach those milestones? And you're just kind of presuming that you are going to reach those milestones, or do you leave it until you're closest to the milestones? But then you obviously face the risk of running out of them. You've got
to run it in parallel. And this is why it's important to work back and to start the prep for your fundraising ahead of time. And you know, you're going to try to time it, but a couple of things happen. Either you want your timing, like, I have loads of money and runway left, therefore I'm going to time it based on when I achieve the milestone. But at least you're prepared, and when the milestone happens, or if you delayed it, you can choose when to start it. All the preparation's done. The other thing is just like, I have to go and fundraise because I'm running out of runway. I've only got 6 months runway left. If I don't fundraise now, then there's a chance we're going to run out of cash. And at that stage, you got to go with what you've got, right? So, you know, the big crunch is always, you either go in September or you go in January. Yeah, and you've got to work with what you've got at that time to make it. Yeah, exactly. So this timing thing about when the windows are open are really important to try to plan ahead. Cool. Okay, let's keep moving. There are some other questions I still haven't got to, but hopefully we'll have some time at the end. Yeah. So the first thing is that folks who go to investment committees, typically good VCs will convert almost all their investment committees. You may have to go and pitch. This is a very good sign. If you've got 3 or 4 investment committees coming up, then it's a really good chance that you're going to have a couple of term sheets. The inflection point in every fundraising process is the first term sheet. And the reason is because you can go back to all the investors in your pipeline and say, factually, we received our first term sheet today. We request that if anyone is, you know, serious about investing, that, you know, we need to get an offer in within the next 3 to 5 days. So it's a way of like absolutely compressing the decision. And it's totally normal. It's not like you're kind of like waving a term sheet around and trying to get people. It's just, it's a fact. Term sheets expire. VCs know that. If you have one term sheet, it's going to expire in 3 or 5 days. Therefore, they got to move. And so it's a good focal point to get everyone to close, to get the second and third term sheets in. And it also just turns the FOMO around. Every investor who gets that message from you is going to go, another VC's decided to, you know, put a term sheet on the table. Maybe I should as well. The opposite of the no rumors. Now it's the yes rumors, right? Yeah. Which makes them even more excited. Um, you should ask, some VCs might say you have 24 hours to decide, and you absolutely should push back on this and say, actually, I need 4 or 5 days. I want to be able to do some reference calls with some of your founders, so I can find out what it's like working with you. And then you can just be really honest, say, and we have a process. We have several other VCs who are in investment committee, and we want to make have everyone the opportunity to have a term sheet on the table. But like, you can't ask for 2 weeks, right? It has to be a pretty reasonable time period. These term sheets do
5 days. Is that reasonable? Is that reasonable timeline?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why you immediately need to go out and put the timetable on for everyone else. You should always talk to founders who've worked with a partner before. It's the most important due diligence you can do. They're going to back channel references on you. You want to understand what it's like working with them. If you've got multiple term sheets, you can negotiate and use them as leverage. But it's really important not to overplay this. I think you get 1 or 2 rounds of negotiations with a VC before it starts to harm the relationship. So really understand what couple of things are really important to you, whether it's the ESOP amount or the valuation or the lead check size, etc. And you really should try to choose for partner fit when everything else is similar. So you'll probably get different valuations or different terms from different investors. And if you're just optimizing on valuation or just optimizing on dilution or something, I think you're missing the point, which is the partner can play a huge role in the success of your company, and you're going to have to work with this person for a long time. So we actually took a lead investment at a lower valuation because of the partner was just amazing that I wanted to work with.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then finally, look, once you sign the term sheet, you've got to manage the lawyers. The lawyers will absolutely kind of wreck the closing process if they try to add too much value, right? So you kind of need to rein your lawyers in, and they can make a meal of this and overdo it. And your job is to say, I don't care about this stuff. Like, these are the 2 or 3 points I care about. We want to keep this moving and close, hopefully within 4 to 6 weeks of the term sheet signing.
One big question that I know was submitted by people in advance, by a few people, was just around that valuation piece.
Yep.
How do you decide, try and estimate, try and calculate, and obviously negotiate on that valuation piece? And how do you present that to investors as well?
So I'm going to give you the early stage answer to the valuation. Once you get Series A, Series B, it's determined by your financial metrics a lot.
Yeah.
People will start to look at revenue multiples and things like this.
Yeah.
But in the early stages, none of that matters. Like, there's no revenue, or there's very little. Like, you can't financially value a company. So the first thing is that the valuation is determined through supply and demand. If you have a bunch of term sheets from investors who are all offering you different valuations, right? You can reach a valuation through supply and demand. This investor is going to offer me this. Will you offer me that? Right? It's kind of up to them to determine the valuation. But when you think about a couple of guardrails, every VC has an ownership target.
Yeah.
And it's a question you can ask them, what's your ownership target? And most VCs will say, our minimum is we want 10%, 20%. And so you should probably expect at every round to give away somewhere around 20% of the company. If you're raising a 3 million round, it means, 15 million valuation is, kind of probably top of the line. Oftentimes earlier rounds, the valuation or dilution is even more. It could be a third of the company. But there are just so many different factors that VCs will use to determine where in a range of valuations they think a startup is, based on the quality of the team, how far the product is, the market sizing, things like this. There's no equation. There's no multiples of revenue or anything that in the space.
And so the probably the best thing that you can control as a founder is just to make sure you get a second or third term sheet where you can then actually use that as leverage to negotiate. Yeah,
and you shouldn't ask for valuation, right? You should ask for an amount of capital and say, we need 3 million to do this. And then as the offers come in, the investors will show you what they think the valuation is. And that will imply a certain dilution in ownership stake. And if you're in the good position of having several investors, right, you can basically move that valuation around through some negotiation.
Okay, cool. So maybe we can just do a quick recap for everyone, and then we can dive into some of the questions that we've not answered.
Very simple. It's a system. Follow the system to optimize it. Prepare, get the right investor lists, run a very tight roadshow, and then leverage term sheets. Choose the best partner.
Oh, wicked. There's a ton of questions that we haven't had time to, which is great. But I didn't want to drown you too much as we went. I wanted to get through kind of the key content pieces. So, Sam's most recent, do you have any opinions about the mindset and narrative around selling shares in the company versus giving away part of the company?
Do you mean like safe round versus a priced equity round, or?
Sam, maybe you can clarify that for us. In the meantime, we can go through. If you get multiple term sheets, do they all have the same terms? Valuation X. If not, do you take funding from multiple VCs, and do they get different terms? So normally it's set by a lead, isn't it? And then everyone follows the same terms.
Yeah. So a term sheet is an offer for a lead investment. And you typically, we bring on one lead investor, and they will typically take more than 50% of the round. And they will have different terms, but they will largely be standard. There's a standard set of terms, typically pre-seed and seed. The numbers might vary. Like they might want a larger ESOP program for your team. This is the big one that you need to keep an eye on, because it means a lot more dilution. Or they may have obviously different valuation, but typically at pre-seed and seed, these are like BVCA standard kind of term sheets.
Cool. Okay. And then so we've got a question from Anonymous. Do you think doing any angel rounds is a really important stage to go through before VC?
I would highly recommend doing an angel round, particularly if you're raising like 250 to 500. This is not a place where VCs want to play. Institutional investors have capital to deploy and ownership stakes, and if you're raising like under $1 million, it's hard to get investors excited who are professionals. Doing an angel round is a great sign that you can get people with a lot of credibility of the industry backing your business. They're a great form of introduction to VCs, and so yeah, they can be a really good signaling piece for you. So I would highly recommend it. It also gets you in the zone of practicing fundraising and practicing pitching. And you don't have to compress it. Like we take on angels all the time. And you can we keep an angel allocation open after every round. So if a great angel turns up, we can bring them on at any stage in the company at set terms and valuation.
And I guess it's, talking to like the kind of cold intros and warm intros, it's kind of part of a way of seeding that network for yourself, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Cool. If you've done any prep, if you've done your prep and started outreach to VCs from a CRM that we've created, how do you follow up? I've applied through websites which say they will come back to you, also through LinkedIn and email. Do I follow up in days or next week?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you are applying through a website, the chances are very low.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Cold outreach on LinkedIn, again, less effective. What I would do is I would go to the partners in the firm, their LinkedIn page, and find out if you have any mutual connections. It's a very simple way. And then if you have a mutual connection, you reach out to that connection and say, can you introduce me to this person? I see you're LinkedIn connected. And like, honestly, everything about doing a startup, from hiring to acquiring customers to acquiring investors, requires you to network and requires you to figure out routes into folks. And so you really just need to be a lot more aggressive, ambitious, and, try to do the networking and figuring out ways to do it. It's just the life of a founder, not just for fundraising, but also for hiring and for winning customers.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Interesting. I hope that answered your question there. And just on that point, what do you think about investor updates such as new hires, new deals, X? Is there something that you guys do? Do you do something monthly, quarterly with Seapoint, and you pull in, your pipeline that you booked from the last kind of fundraise that you did, you kind of move them into some sort of update they get as well on a regular basis?
Keep your existing investors updated. If you've got a large set of angels, keep those update pretty vague, because you don't want information leaking out of your company into VCs. I would absolutely not send VCs who've passed on your round and who are not investors updates in your business. I wouldn't take coffees with them as well, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to piece together a bunch of intelligence on your business over points in time. And what ends up happening is they end up judging you way too early. So when you go and you do the investor roadshow, you're presenting a point in time. Here's where we are. Here's our customers, our product, our momentum, etc. And you're doing it in the best possible narrative. And you want every investor to have that as their first experience to judge you. You don't want them to have a bunch of data points across a year before where your product wasn't great. A couple of early customers churned, or you thought you were going to launch this and it didn't work out. You don't want them to see all of that mess, right? You want them to see the best possible version of your company in the point of time you're raising.
Interesting. Okay.
So just email anyone who contacts you. Hey, we're heads down building. Would love to chat once we're through the next stage or we're raising money.
Okay, cool. And then one of the questions here from Anonymous is Seapoint are there any Seapoint drop-in sessions planned for Dublin? Which kind of brings us on to kind of the next slide.
Well, I'm based in Dublin. So absolutely, you can come into the office anytime and come and chat to us. But yeah, we do office hours. Listen, what we're building a business account that automates finances for startups. We only work with pre-seed and seed stage startups at the moment. We want to be the kind of financial home. And part of that is with fundraising. Fundraising is the most critical financial process for founders. So we're building out some tools at the moment to help. I mentioned this investor database we're building. Have a pitch tool, which can analyze your pitch and give you feedback. If you're interested in any of that, drop me an email. We do these office hours every week. So if you need any advice, I do half-an-hour slots very regularly with founders. Come in and book a session. And go and visit our website. We're just launching our self-serve, so you can actually sign up and try Seapoint and skip the wait list that we've had for a while.
So cool. I mean, like, Sean, this is like such an epic opportunity for someone. I just want to clarify as well, like, you're based in Dublin, but there's an office based out of, you guys got an office in London.
We work in Waterloo. We do office hours there as well. Do stop by, drop me an email. Happy to connect you with the team. We've got product design, sales, customer success, all based in London as well. Yeah, awesome. Okay, that's a really big opportunity for people who want to follow up a little bit more and chat with Sean, but also some of the rest of the Seapoint team. I know, like, I met Neil and Yusuf, and they're also extremely knowledgeable. So, cool, epic resource. Cool. And then, for everyone else as well, like, this is obviously a masterclass we're running through Founder Nation, which is the community that I'm involved in. We've got over 100 founders involved, doing a bunch of revenue across quite a wide range of industries. Many people going through fundraising, many people who've been through fundraising and who are well connected. And if you actually can schmooze them well enough, might do intros for you. So it's a really awesome community to be a part of, and we run pretty regular events. Most in-person events are based in and around London, but we'll be expanding from that. And there's also some virtual online stuff that we do as well if you're not based in London. So if you're interested in joining, it's free to join, which is pretty cool. So feel free to kind of visit our website or scan the QR code to hit up our sign up form. Yeah. Good, guys. Sean, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for their lunch hour. And do get in touch with us if we can help.
Yeah, awesome. I'm sure loads of people will be taking you up on that. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge on that. That was genuinely really, really informative. Thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks everyone else for joining. As Sean said, thanks for taking some time out of your very busy days to be here. And hopefully we'll see you at the next one.
Cheers. Thanks.